Hey everyone, we've reached the end of the month, so we're going to recap some of the great conversations that have been going on in the Humanizing Work community. If you've had a busy month and haven't been able to stay as engaged with the community as you'd like, this recap will serve as a quick highlight reel. And we'll link back to the original conversations in the description so you can go deeper on any topics that spark your interest. Here are the highlights for July of 2022.
First up was the conference alumni community that meets on the first Friday of every month. We were really excited to share the Humanizing Work 2022 in-person alumni conference. We shared the program for the conference and had a little bit of a lean coffee afterwards. Really cool to share the program and to share that our good friends, Jake Calabrese, Trisha Broderick, Paul Tevis would be joining us as speakers at the conference this year. And it was really great to see the excitement around the conference program. We had a bunch of people commenting after they've had a minute or two to review it that they were already feeling the tension of which good session am I going to attend? There are so many that I want to go to, and some of them are at the same time. So really fun to talk through the program. We also answered several questions about the details of specific sessions to help people sort of make a decision about which session they wanted to attend. We got some fun comments back from folks as well. Our good friend Bryna, that many of you know, commented that we've got a lot of sexy talks and that this was going to be a fun conference to be attending. If you're struggling with choosing which session to attend, make sure you start a thread in the Humanizing Work, the HW 2022 Slack channel, and we're happy to jump in and help and provide any additional details that might assist you. You can check out all the conference details on our website, humanizingwork.com. Following the program review for the conference, we did a quick lean coffee and discussed the Scrum Master Project Manager split role, talk through how to separate them and what the budget consequences are. Really good conversation, so make sure you review the full recording.
And then on our second Friday, which is our Scrum Master and Coach community, we had a topic around the many different models of coaching that are floating out there in the world. And we started by talking about the different things that we hire coaches to do. And we found that they're pretty broad, broader than some of the standard definitions that we hear about coaching. And we talked a lot about how great coaches that we've worked with, and when we're trying to be great coaches are really fluid in what skills they use, depending on which people and teams and context they're working in. And so a single definition of it was hard to come up with. And so then we dug into different models, kind of mental models for what coaching means for people. We looked at like how the coactive coaching community defines coaching at ACI, the Agile Coach Institute. We looked at Doug Silsby's mindful coach model and several others. Then we had a good discussion about what we're hoping to get better at as coaches. And as always happens in these Zoom sessions, the participants contributed by providing some awesome tips and insights into how to improve at those challenges that people were facing. Another good one to check out the recording to get some insight into those tips and how we're thinking about coaching these days.
Moving on to week 3, the product owner community. The topic was your stickiest problems and your most treasured resources. We used a lean coffee approach for this one, and the stickiest problems made it to the top in the dot vote. Among the things we discussed, the challenge where the team doesn't ask questions during backlog refinement, but then has lots of issues and questions later in sprint planning and development, how to address that. Had one around dealing with changes in scope on in-process work, and whether you add a new user story, change the scope of a story, how you navigate that. Talked about how to change roadmaps from release plans, like lists of features, to more outcome-based roadmaps. And talked about a challenge with a company not looking at priorities as a whole, but within each technology domain. And then there was kind of a situation where nothing's ready until everything's ready, and talk through that challenge. The favorite resources everyone shared, while they didn't get a lot of discussion around them, they all ended up out on the Miro board, which we shared during the call, and you can check that out.
A pattern that frequently emerges during our sessions is that the community members jump in to help one another. It's a peer-to-peer community as much as or more than Peter and Richard answering all the questions. This creates a community of practitioners sharing what they've tried and helping brainstorm approaches to solve the stickiest problems out there. Let's check out the recording to listen in on this conversation too.
Next up was our leadership community. And our topic this week was on one-on-ones and how to have an effective one-on-one meeting. And I'll just highlight some of the key points that came up in that discussion as we talked through it. The first point was that the 3 jobs model, thinking about the jobs of management, ended up giving us a variety of things to focus in on one-on-ones, and gave us almost a broader menu than most of us think of when we go into one-on-ones. So it was like a nice dashboard of options to talk about in one-on-ones. And using that model was helpful in keeping us out of a one-on-one feeling like a status report or just a discussion about what short-term problems we're trying to solve, and helped us shift our perspective to a little bit more long-term development and growth. There was a really interesting thread in that discussion around how the level of development of the leader will strongly affect the options available for a one-on-one. It just affects how they see things and what they would consider important to talk about in a one-on-one. We also talked about using one-on-ones as kind of a customer interview for some of the focus areas that you might work on outside of one-on-ones. And that was an interesting conversation as well. Finally, we got into talking about some nuance around ethical concerns that might come up and what's appropriate to talk about in a one-on-one, because we're not licensed therapists. Sometimes personal things can come up that may or may not be appropriate in a work context, and what we might do if conversations like that start to head in that direction.
Existing community members can access links to the recordings on the community space for each of these communities. Our communities are made up of alumni of our courses and of our annual conference. So if that's you, and if you want to get in on the discussions as they happen, reach out and we'll get you the info to register.